Hello everyone, this is Jake from Jake's Scary Unusual. In today's story, we're going to talk about a man named Bill that went to Portlock, Alaska. Yes, Portlock, Alaska. That is where the Bigfoot sighting was back in the 1950s. If you guys enjoy this episode, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all your support, like always. And thank you again for 100 subscribers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. When Bill was traveling to Portlock, he had a really hard time. He had to take some buses, an airplane, just getting to this area, getting to this island. And, then he had to take a boat to actually get to this region because of the time of year it was in. It was really strange, the whole atmosphere of this place, with all the pine trees and just how desolate everything is. So he actually goes and camps at Portlock. This guy is pretty experienced in the wilderness. He's been everywhere. So Bill's setting up his camp. He's setting up a little tent, a little fire, and everything. And he's looking off into the distance. It's getting to be a little darker at this time of day. And he's looking way off, and he sees something moving in the trees. And he's like, oh, it's nothing. There's nothing there. It's just maybe an animal or something. He keeps looking at it. He actually goes into his bag and pulls out a pair of binoculars. He gets the binoculars, he puts them up to his eyes, and he's looking off. And it's really strange what he sees because you're like, oh yeah, it's probably just a moose or something, considering the certain type of wildlife in this area, in this part of Alaska. So he's looking at this thing and he can't really make out what it is. You think he'd be able to make it out with the binoculars, and he's looking at it, he's like, He's like, is this a dog? Or is this a creature? What is this? I've never seen this before. He actually never heard of Bigfoot before, which is really strange considering someone that's been in the wilderness so much. But he wasn't really a social guy. He didn't really go on the internet much. This was actually back in the 90s when Bill went. And he never really cared to socialize with a lot of people. He kind of just read these old survival books and, learned stuff from his family. He never really looked into like different types of creatures and stuff because he never really seen anything when he went on these different adventures. He just heard that Portlock was really cool. And he heard that there might be some things out there, but he doesn't know what a Bigfoot looked like or anything like that. So for him, it's just like, oh, it's maybe just another animal that I haven't discovered. So he goes along getting his camp set up for the night, and he gets a fire going and stuff. And it's getting really cold at this point, it's just that time of year where, obviously, anyway, Alaska's cold. But especially this time of year, it was just really frigid. And he's getting everything set up, and he gets his food going and his drinks. He was getting snuggled into his tent too. He's kind of like, the way he has everything set up is really nice because it's like the wind is blowing a certain type of way right now where it's not towards him. But he sees this old shack in the distance, and he's been looking at it all day, since he's arrived. He's like, I'm going to go over to the shack. I want to see what's in the shack. So he grabs his flashlight, he's like, I'm going to get the blood pumping a little bit. He gets his hand warmers, and he puts them in his feet as well, make sure his body stays warm. And he's going over to the shack, and he's looking in there, and he sees glowing red eyes. And it's really, really, really spooky because he's like, okay, I'm the only one out here. I don't know of many things that have glowing red eyes. And it made this really gnarly sound. And he's like, okay, I need to back away from this thing. So he actually starts hustling back to his tent. And he has his fire going. The weirdest thing is, though, is the fire wasn't going as good as it was before. And you would assume, oh, well, it's only because I was away for a few minutes. It was dying down a little. But that wasn't the case. There was water splashed all over the place. And his canteen was actually busted open. It was ripped in half. It was one of those military plastic canteens. He just liked carrying it around. It was always something he enjoyed to carry around with him. But it was all busted open and all over the place. And he's like, how could have this happened? I'm the only one here, and I didn't hear any animals over here. And he really got spooked out when he picked up the canteen and looked at it. And he could see it was ripped right in half. So, when something rips in half, you can usually tell it's teared. Well, it was the same way with this canteen. This was one of the hard plastic ones. It wasn't like a metal one or anything. It'd be too cold. And it just was so weird. It was really eerie at that point because he got the chills down his back. Bill was not feeling good at this time. And he looks back over the shack and he shines the flashlight inside of it again. He sees no glowing red eyes. And he looks over to his right and you can see this thing across the water because at this point he's on the edge. He's on the edge of the Portlock. And he sees glowing red eyes over there. Not one set, but two sets of glowing red eyes. And Bill's at this point is like, okay, what am I going to do? This is not great. I don't want to be in this situation. I have to deal with this. Whatever this creature is, it's clearly not friendly. And it's messing with me. Like, what is it trying to say to me? Is it telling me to leave? I don't really know at this point. But, he just thought to himself, let's just settle down and maybe it'll go away, maybe things will change overnight. So he gets his fire going a little better, gets some more logs in there, gets it really glowing good, and he eats his dinner. He hears nothing, he doesn't see anything. But at this point, obviously, Bill is pretty spooked out. He's not sure what to do next, but he just keeps playing along with everything and just like calming himself down. He's like, oh, well, maybe a bear came over, or something stepped on my canteen. It just looks like it was ripped in half, but in reality, it was just busted from getting stepped on. So, he eats his dinner. He goes in his tent. He has the fire going really nice outside, and he's falling asleep. And next thing you know it, he hears something hit his tent, and he's like, what was that? This doesn't make any sense. There's no one else out here. Maybe a bird or an owl maybe hit my tent. So he looks at his tent and he sees there's a little tear in it. And then from the other side, he hears a boom. And he looks and then there's another tear. It's like, okay, is something hitting my tent? What's going on here? And another one from the other side. And this time, whatever hit his tent went right through it. Fell right inside with him. It was really hot. He was like, oh, he burned himself. And it's actually a rock that was near the fire. It got really hot. And because it was so hot, it actually burned through the type of plastic this tent was made of and landed next to him on his sleeping bag. And he burned himself with it. And he's like, okay, there's someone here. Whatever it is that doesn't want me here, I need to make up my mind then. I gotta do something really quick. So he actually unzips his tent. He actually has a knife with him. And he goes outside his tent. It's like a good hunting knife. About like 8 to 10 inches. And he's looking around. He's ready to use it. He's thinking, okay, someone's trying to take me out. Someone's trying to hurt me. Or maybe they're just playing tricks with me. Maybe there's some group of kids or something. Or some like adults that are just causing trouble for me. And he's looking around the tent. And he doesn't see anything. And it's like, okay, well, I know I saw that thing with the glowing red eyes before. I wonder if this has anything to do with it. Is there a creature that I don't know about that maybe I should have looked into before coming out here? He just knew it was a really tranquil place. He didn't know the actual history of this. Bill is an avid explorer and hiker, and he actually lives in Alaska. I think he would know the folklore by now. So he's looking around. His fire's going pretty well still. But he looks around and he can see these really strangely large footprints around his fire. And he can see where the rocks were taken out because these were decent sized rocks. I mean, about this big, a big sized rock was actually taken away near these fires. And he's looking around. He grabs his light, he turns it on. And he can see something running really fast in the distance away from him and his camp. And he's like, you know what? It's best if I just stay here for the night. Stay up, stay near the fire, and just stay guard. Because I have no other choice but to do that. This is a situation I really don't want to get involved with if this thing's going to come back. So the best thing I can do is stand my guard, keep this thing away with whatever I have to do. And the worst part is, Bill's thinking to himself, There's multiples of these things. I seen multiple sets of these things' eyes from across the water, and then it's like it tricked me when it was inside that little cabin back there, that old abandoned shack. It's like one of the other ones tried putting out the fire at my camp while it was distracting me. It's like I knew I was gonna go over there. It's like these things had experience with other people in this area and that have may even camped here. And that's the creepiest thing about this whole story is the experiences prior. So Bill's looking around and he's like, okay, I don't see anything again. Let's sit back down. I got a little log here. I'm gonna stay warm next to the fire all night, and I'll pack up in the morning and head out of here. Because Bill's actually original plan was to stay there for the whole weekend. He was here on the weekend, and he just obviously couldn't do that now. So, hours go by. He doesn't hear anything. He's falling asleep on the log. He has a big like comforter thing around him at this point. Rolls up real small though, so he's able to take it on these types of hikes with him and different types of adventures like this. So the morning comes around and he's like exhausted at this point. He got no sleep. His adrenaline was pumping before. He's exhausted. He doesn't know really what to do with himself. He's like, maybe I can just take a nap. But he hears a crack in the distance over this little mountain behind him. He's like, you know what? I'm not taking any risk. I'm packing up and I'm getting out of here. So Bill packs up his tent. He gets everything settled. He makes sure the fire's out. And he's getting ready to go. And he looks back at that shack about 1/8 of a mile away behind him where his camp was. And he hears something rustling in there. And he hears a loud bang because there's some metal in there. He saw it last night. And he sees this thing jump out of the back and goes flying into the forest, these pines behind the shack. And he's like, okay, I'm not trying to investigate this, but I'm curious. And unfortunately, I do have to go this way. This is the most efficient way out of here so I can get back out of this area. Because his boat was actually on the other side of the island, he was actually next to. So he's going down that way. He's following this path. In Portlock, there's a lot of weird things. It's a really old town from the 50s. And they abandoned it because this Bigfoot monster. Was it Bigfoot that he saw? We don't know, but we're continually discovering and finding out as the story goes on what this thing actually might be. So Bill's going down further this trail, and he's looking off to the left. He's going, and he sees like all these rocks in a weird formation right in front of him, and it makes a circle. And they're all different sized rocks, but it didn't make much sense to Bill. He couldn't really make out what it is, but he goes up to it and he looks in front of him and he sees this hairy creature about a 1/4 mile away up this trail. And mind you, this area is very flat. It kind of curves a little bit. His boat's up there. And the worst part is about this whole thing is what it looked like. It was like 8-9 feet tall. It was this hairy, like ape-looking creature. He never seen it before, and it was just staring at him. You should have seen its eyes. Very intimidating. Something very dark behind this thing. And it seemed very intelligent in the way it moved and acted. And Bill was just terrified. But he's like, you know what? I have to keep moving, and every other time I've seen these things, they ran away from me. So he continues moving past this weird circle of rocks, and he keeps going. And he gets to his boat, thankfully, but things he rows with are gone. And he's like, okay, where are my rows? I need to get out of here. And he's looking off behind this rock. He can see a piece of the wood sticking up. So he's walking over, and he can see these things again in the distance. He's like, what's going on here? What's watching me? And then rocks start getting thrown at him. He's like, boom, boom. And he looks, and there's a rock right next to him. And then he hears another one to the right. At this point, though, he's so spooked out. He's like, okay, whatever's wrong with these oars, I'm going to get them and get out of here. He grabs it. One's good. The other one's slightly cracked. So he's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm taking them. I'm taking the risk. I need to get out of here. This place is messed up. There's creatures. There's things I don't know about. And I think they're telling me something. They're telling me to leave. He started getting that feeling the night before. He's like, okay, I need to get out of here. I need to make a plan because there's something going on here and I can't control this. Bill grabs his oars. He's running over to his boat, and then more rocks come, like little pebbles here and there. And you can hear this weird growling sound like off in the distance, and he just gets extremely uncomfortable. It feels like he's being watched more and more. And it seems like these things are everywhere around him. So he gets in his boat, puts his stuff down. Luckily, the boat's fine. And, before he put all that in, he was pushing it off into the water. He jumps in, and more rocks get pummeled at him. It's like, what's going on? Thrown constantly. He gets in, he gets his oars going. Luckily, he gets out of there. He rows, he gets across the shore, makes his way down the road, you know, and eventually he gets on a plane and he's just there, just shocked. He's like, what did I see? What was following me? I'm not really sure what I went through, but I hated it. I hated every step of it. And, just the amount of courage Bill had to have to get through that and actually stay the night, it was probably for the best because it seemed like these creatures, they definitely seem like the Alaskan Bigfoot. It seems like these creatures really knew what they were doing. They really wanted Bill to not get out of there. They tried putting out his fire. So Bill's on the plane and he's just shocked. And Bill ended up getting home. He's writing a book about it. And Bill has talked to people many since then, and he's just, oh man, he's just in awe at this whole situation. So, anyways, that was Bill's Bigfoot Alaskan story. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, share, and subscribe. And remember, I have all my podcasts now on YouTube. Podcasts are on YouTube. There is their own category on my channel. Please definitely check those out. I appreciate it. And have a great night, great day, and bye for now.